And we're live with another episode of the Underflow Podcast, the podcast that's never emerged from the underground yet. With, how did you guys just describe yourself? Athletic dad rock?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Rock and roll. Well, yeah, this is Underflow Records doing the Underflow Podcast. I'm Adam Fitzgerald, aka Quells, with Big Mess, the Big Mess guys, straight from Livonia, Michigan. What's up,
That's right.
fellas? Can you guys introduce yourselves real quick, please?
Sure. Uh, I am Mike Carden. With me is my brother, Rob Carden. We have another brother who's not here. His name is Pat Carden. And then this is Scott Allen. And we also have Brad Allen with us in our athletic dad rock and roll
Outfit.
band, Big Mess.
I love that. Well, it's a
Like
pleasure
it?
to meet you guys officially. I've been listening
Likewise.
to a crazy amount of Big Mess. Um,
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I was just re-listening to the older albums again earlier today, and I was like sending a couple songs to Scott, but super good stuff all around. The new album from Sheldon Hall to Wonderland Mall by Big Mess, the third full-length LP. What I just want to know everything about it. I have so many questions, but I guess we should probably, for the sake of our viewers, like take it all the way back to maybe the beginning of Big Mess, maybe the beginning of you guys meeting each other. Obviously, we can talk about how Scott and I know each other too, but yeah, congratulations on a beautiful third record.
Thanks. Pretty wild, came kind of quick. Was started and finished, I think, pretty quick relative to how our other Big Mess records went, I think.
Hmm.
I think it's got a special-ish name from Sheldon Hall to Wonderland Mall.
Very
Sheldon
special.
Hall is a strip mall right down the street from all of us. Wonderland Mall is a mall 2 miles away. So everything from our formative years basically is established within those 2 miles. Um,
Love that.
yeah, it kind of album sort of I think harkens back to this area, to Livonia. I think we're
Hmm.
all somewhat fascinated with the area, I'd say to a degree, and how
Yeah.
subtle and boring it is, but also there's just a lot of funny stuff and a lot of memories. So I don't know.
Dude.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically where we all kind of like sort of gathered friendship wise, through high school, middle school even. I mean, we've known each other for decades, or right? That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it's been really cool to see um sort of like from where we started to where we are now, which was young men to sort of, older men into now like in our late 30s, early 40s, which has been kind of like really cool to sort of, and there's been like separation of time from the last first two to this one, which has been interesting. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, I mean, what Mike was saying is like it took us a long time to write, especially the second one, the Romantic Warrior softball team record. It took us forever to write that. But this one was just like it kind of all came out of all of us. It was like, hey, let's make a record. And then we're like, okay. And then we got together a couple times. And then it was like it just happened very, very quickly. With a lot of long hours with recording, but yeah, just like uh, it was very quick in terms of like
Wow.
agreeing and just letting things happen organically and not like stepping on each other's toes, just kind of
Yeah.
being like, good idea, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. Like every idea, whatever the best idea was, we all went for it.
That's awesome. I mean, if I didn't know you and like we weren't talking throughout the process of it, I would have thought this album took forever because it's so intricately layered and like dense with like you guys mix like the cacophony and the harmony and the symphony all in one in some songs, and it's really intricate. Oh, I love that Brad is Papa Allen is making an appearance. That's what's up. The
E-Red.
bassist slash
Yeah.
daddy, secret daddy
Yeah.
behind Big Mess. But no, I mean, it's funny because I would have thought like the inverse listening to the records. I mean, again, I guess if you're just coming in, like if you're a new listener and you're just meeting Big Mess, you might think, oh, what is this like? We have like Sade level like gaps between albums. Like first it was like a 4 year gap between record one and record two with like a split in between. And like you said, you worked on the second record for a long time, and but it was way longer between album two and album three, like a decade. But you're saying that this album actually came together a lot quicker, which is interesting because I feel like the albums when you guys were younger, maybe just because you were younger, have this like sense of urgency. And like this new record is just so like all over the place. And I mean, Scott and I talk about music a lot, and we have similar heroes, but Harry Nilsson and Damon Albarn come to mind as much as, fucking Maka and Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. And I
Yeah.
know these are some of your influences. So I would love to hear about kind of the thought process that went into the record, because you have stripped down songs that I love that are just super cutting, like Better Now. But then you have these other like crazy songs like based on a true story, not actual events, or like the end of, I think it's Have a Good Weekend. I mean, in the way the album flows, it's like, it's like all of a sudden it's like kitchen sink, and then it's nothing, and then it's like a good groove. And it's interesting because like through the label, I've been submitting like the songs, and it's always so interesting to like see what people say. But people really seem to love the balance of harmonic elements you guys have, and everybody compliments the production of this record and just the way it's mixed and engineered and all sits together really well. Even when it's a lot going on, it doesn't feel like too much. So I was wondering if you guys could talk about that, like full throttle, strip back, like kitchen sink. Like I know I was talking to Scott earlier and he was saying, all of you guys were writing chord progressions and just kind of going at it, recording, which is so dope in my opinion.
I think it was like very productive based on, well, what feels like productive to us at least, based on, relative to the second album, like where we're at now. Like we were more down to business, I think, on this one. Like,
Hmm.
pardon the cliche, but like our goal was to be productive and not just to come down here and just like goof around. Like every time we got together, I think we tried to, hey, like let's get something done. It doesn't matter if it's like one guitar part on a song that's got four guitar parts. Like does we just wanted to get
Right.
something. And like every time we got together, and Scott, I mean, and I spent a ton of time together, and Rob too, and Pat as well, obviously. But like, let's just get something done. Um,
Yeah.
Whereas like the second album, we had already had like three or four of those songs done, if you will, and we're playing them whenever we played once or a month, maybe. Like we'd had those done for 2 years. It was like, oh, I
Mhm.
guess, well, I guess we should make a record.
Right.
It was like, and I like it to like income tax time. It's like, you probably should do it. But at times felt a little bit like chore like.
That's great.
Um, I think, and I don't know, Scott, you could probably speak to it certainly more eloquently, but like when we were going through sort of like writing this album, we had always kind of thought about it. And we talked about it jokingly as like three separate albums, like
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
trilogy of 3 song albums. And
Oh, I remember that.
yeah, we were gonna tie them back to the old Batman movies.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
uh, um, so I think that's where a lot of them moved kind of together at that
That's
point.
great. That's
But
great.
Yeah, there was like three movements. It was like Big Mess,
returns,
Returns,
yeah,
Big Mess, Forever, and then Big Mess and Robin was
yeah,
kind of like the idea.
That's
So like if you
brilliant.
listen to it was supposed to be like a trilogy. And I think
Mm,
that is kind of where maybe the birth of like the idea of like it being like more of like a cinematic experience kind of like
mm,
um maybe like was born in that sort
mm,
of sense because I feel like lyrically but also musically it I think lyrically it sort of touches on like personal stuff and then also also kind of touches on like sort of like exaggerated like truths of things, but then at the same time, like the music, there's sound effects and things like that that sort of like, and even like lyrics that sort of like play with sort of like the idea of like a movie, which is kind of like if you listen to it, like for me, it's like it feels sort of like a musical for Livonia in a lot of ways.
That's fantastic. I love that idea. And I love all the sound effects. And there's so much going on in the album, like sonically and also thematically. And I'm listening more through the entire discography. I love the kind of tongue-in-cheek elements you guys have. And I say this to Scott a lot, but I feel like Big Mess especially really embodies this really beautiful, like, duality of like not taking oneself too seriously, but also being very heartfelt and earnest. And this album really has that feeling where it's like not afraid to laugh at itself, but it's like not afraid to cry either, not
I
to
think
sound
like that,
dramatic.
that is, I think that's kind of like plays to our personalities though.
Mm,
Like we've all been friends for so long and we've like we can sit around a circle and laugh and like make like stupid jokes for hours, but then at the same time we can also like have serious conversations. And I would say in the last year we definitely had both. And you know, it's been a really kind of for me it's been a really amazing experience just because you know once we stopped writing music back in whatever this was 2015
2013.
2013 or
Yeah.
whatever it was, we stopped playing and I got married and you know you were married I think by
I
then.
was married. I didn't have any kids.
mm,
Pat was married and had a kid.
Yeah, I
You
mean
know, like
we all got married, we all uh
yeah,
had children or whatever
right.
and like we didn't write music during that whole
Hmm.
process, so like now like coming back to where like our lives have been completely different has been a really cool experience because it really humbles you where you can sort of like be like there was the joke buddy guys writing music, and maybe that's why it was so like long and not as productive before because we were screwing around, we were having a good time. Now
Mm,
that we're older and we have jobs and we like want to like, we don't
hmm.
have as much time, you sort of take sort of like that time that you have for free, you don't take it for granted and like and that was why we were like I think we were able to sort of like all be
bang
like
stuff
okay
out.
here we are like we have 3 hours of time so let's like make the
Yeah,
most.
I think to that point,
that's smart.
it's like we didn't spend, I don't think, a ton of time like belaboring stuff. It's like,
No.
all right, well, like we got to take, we like to take, let's go on to different, let's go
Yeah.
do something else. Like we tracked a lot pretty quick.
Uh,
I don't think I mean, you guys feel free to disagree. I don't think we spent a ton of time, um, belabor. I definitely think as you grow up and maybe mature out of certain things, there's a bit more focus there,
okay,
whereas before, we were just talking for practices, we'd all meet up and at a bar and have a couple drinks and then come down here
right.
and it's kind of more just like goof around. Believe me, I still think there was a heavy amount of goofing around this
Yeah,
last
there
time.
was
We
for
had a
sure.
we had a blast. Like
I love that.
some of the songs, but
That's great.
a little bit more focused, I'd say.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of catharsis, at least for me, in the record. I mean, there's like echoes of like love and loss and growing up and like change and kind of what's happening in the world. But there's also this focus on, I don't know, maybe it's because we are the last generations that grew up like pre-internet. I feel like there's something tied into this album like that. And I think that it's really special that you're able to focus. That's very like adult and, to focus on the productivity. Like my girlfriend's always saying like, wait, you're about to do something. It's like 9 at night and you're trying to be productive right now. And like sometimes you have to like back off, but it's hard to draw the line when you're doing art, and it's so good that you guys are able to really enjoy each other's company and like you said, like have a blast, because that's part of the catharsis. And I feel like there's a lot of like life lessons, like lessons learned, like I should learn something from this type of vibe of like the experiences shared through the record. And it's interesting because I feel like there's such a variety of everything happening in the record, like tones and instruments and, lyrical ideas. But I love the way you guys represent it with this kind of, I don't know, chamber pop, baroque, baroque, power pop thing, which I was saying to Scott, it's like, Scott's power pop is totally different than like Ryan Allen, Scott's brothers power pop. And it's super interesting to kind of hear how everybody's evolved in their own directions. And again, I love all the different things happening and like, even back to the first record, there's like mandolin on some songs and like
Yeah.
some really dope like harmonica throughout the discography. And obviously you guys have like your core, like almost like the band, like five piece, like, two guitars, piano, bass, drums, like vocals, harmonies, Beach Boys, Beatles, the band, what
Yeah,
have
we've
you.
definitely watched The Last Waltz many times.
Right. Yeah. But I love that there's nothing like that. There's nothing like Last Waltz or like Metallica or like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, like over drama within Big Mess. I feel like it's like cutting melodrama in half. It's like, how can we examine life and our experiences while having fun with it? And I feel like the mix of, again, lyrical themes and the kind of like journey through the songs and the different instruments, like the song titles, like the whole order of the song titles, the way the song titles are ordered. If you guys could talk about the song titles, the whole like trilogy, like 333, and then the instrumentation, and how do you decide like from like bass five, like core group to then like, okay, we're gonna throw in a mandolin or we're gonna like do a harmonica solo or we're gonna have like, whiz poppers and sound clappers and Dr. Seuss effects.
Well, to like the sound effects, and then you guys can say whatever. But like for me, the sound effects were kind of important for me personally, because like I was lyrically writing cinematically. I had things
Love
that
that.
happened in my life in the last year that
Hmm.
I didn't really want to necessarily talk about, but I definitely wanted to like, you know,
Yeah.
maybe make, I would say that some of it's obvious to people that know me, and then some of it is very obscure or like, what's the word I'm looking for? Exaggerated. But like with the sound effects, it's like, you listen to Rocky Raccoon, or you listen to like any Beach Boy, like Smile especially, or like
Yeah.
uh the second song in Pet Sounds, what is that called?
You
Uh
put me on the spot, dude.
yeah, I don't know,
Yeah, I
but
know, right?
I just wasn't
little
made for this time, dude.
little honks and
Yeah.
horns and stuff like that,
Dogs
Yeah.
and
barking.
dogs barking and things like that. You don't hear
Yeah.
that in music anymore. And like I think people
Yeah.
are afraid to like do that. And
Yeah.
like I was like, I think we all were just kind of like, if it's like a neighborhood theme, which is like
Mm.
the other thing that these geniuses talked about, raccoons, like
Oh,
it's
wow.
it's supposed to feel like that. It
Right.
needed to have those quirkiness.
Mm.
I felt that the songs needed to have a little bit of that like quirkiness to like make it all work, because
Right.
lyrically it can be tongue in cheek, but like a one sentence can be very tongue in cheek, but then it like rounds with like a serious like thought afterwards.
Hmm.
But then that serious thought becomes less serious because there's like a horse galloping, or like
Right.
what like that is sort
Yeah.
of like um like Rob and I are obsessed with westerns.
Oh,
Okay,
nice.
so like the whole idea of like From Farmington to Middle Belt was like like riding the horse down the 2 miles. Like that was the whole
Amazing.
sort of thing. That just
Wow.
kind of like, I don't know. Yeah.
They had to sell me
That's
on
good.
sound effects. Yeah, I think we were a little apprehensive on, maybe not apprehensive, but I think that can obviously go way overboard. I mean, sound
Mm.
are cool, like, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
they're fun, but
Yeah.
they're also, you want to get it to a point where it doesn't seem like it's just
Right.
laugh track or Rocco's Modern Life or whatever it was
Oh wow.
soundtrack. Just
Love that shit. Didn't the B-52s do that track? That's
they
like
could have. They had all kinds
that's
of funny noises
might have
in
been
their
they
music.
did.
Back from Debo or whatever.
Well,
Right.
I mean, I love all that stuff, and I think the point is that
Yeah.
that stuff is missing. I think in the last 30 years of music, and like, why not reintroduce that to the 4 people that listen to us?
Yeah.
I mean, so like,
I love it because I feel like it ties in thematically, and I feel like I don't know, there's this like playfulness about Big Mess in general, and like, kind of like, again, going back to like the first record, like this like kind of like earnest, like, oh, this is fucked up, but like I'm gonna call you out about it and we're gonna laugh about it. Like that track, like you need therapy or whatever. It was so funny from the first record.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And it's just a lyric on the first record, but I can see these connections from the first record to now, as far as like, wide stretching like thematic elements to the instrumentation in it. I feel like it represents like your guys's like playfulness, but like also like you don't do it in a way where it feels overdone. You do it in a way where it feels poignant, and I think that's the difference. And I think, I was telling Scott that I was playing some of the record for like some of my high school kids before like class started, and there's like that moment, I think it's at the end of Have a Good Weekend, where it's like the big swell and then it goes right into Better Now. And it's like such a beautiful like dynamic shift that feels very cinematic. I think a cinematic, approach is like felt with the song titles and with, all of it. But then there's like the raccoons, and the videos are great. Where did the raccoons, I mean, are a thing in Michigan, like any Midwestern or maybe
I
in
can answer
America.
that.
Yeah, please. Yeah, please. I
So,
love the
so
raccoons.
I
Love
think
this.
we were deciding on like album. I'm talking album art, right? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of to what you were saying before with the playfulness. I mean, let's not forget our name is Big Mess, right? So we've never
Yeah.
really taken ourselves seriously. But at the same time, if you've ever cleaned up your garbage on like a Friday morning because a raccoon got into it, there's like nothing worse, and it truly always is a big mess, right?
Oh,
So that's
wow.
my head
Too
was.
real.
Yeah, we started sending photos back and forth with like raccoons, doing funny stuff, which a lot of it made the back of the album.
All AI generated.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
I cornered the AI market on playful raccoon watercolor. Yeah, like AI generated
Wow.
images.
I love it.
When these guys sent 2 raccoons on a what was it?
jet
The
ski.
jet ski.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the best.
This is it.
Yeah.
When I saw that shit, and then I saw the raccoon with like Alf, like drinking the beer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's just so funny, man. It's just really good. And it's crazy, just like when Scott and I were talking earlier, he's like, yeah, it's been like, like we were just talking too, it's been a decade since the last record somehow. But yet, like, it's also was a decade almost after Thunderbirds Are Now, or like whatever else you guys were doing. So like I want to talk a little bit more about the timeline. You guys went to high school together. You guys aren't all exactly the same age. Obviously, Scott, for those who don't know, was in a band with his brother Ryan called Thunderbirds Are Now, and that was a pretty big deal, in the terms that you guys got to tour the world and do some shit. And I grew up outside of Flint, and I was like going to Detroit early on, for shows, and my grandfather wrote for the Detroit Free Press, so I was just kind of, in Detroit and whatnot. And I remember there was like some sort of compilation that my dad got like a CD of, like a Motor City, maybe some sort of magazine or something, like, you know, whenever From Skulls was out, and it was on that compilation. I mean, From Skulls was kind of everywhere for a minute. And there's the Thunderbirds Are Now song, and that was like the first I heard of Thunderbirds. And like I liked a lot of stuff on that mix. Like I remember some of the bands, like The Nice Device were on there, and like other bands. But like that song like blew my mind in the way that it was just totally out of the box from kind of like what else was happening, and just it had an originality to it. And then I, started playing shows myself in Detroit, and my old band, the Kodaks, even played with Scott's brother Brian Allen's band, Friendly Foes, at the time, enough for people to accuse me of being Ryan Allen's little brother. in like a
Yeah.
nepotism Detroit scene way, which is really fucking weird. Meanwhile, I didn't even really know. I knew Scott existed, but we never met till recently, the last few years, like pandemic or whatever. Scott put out, you know, his solo record, Scott Robert Allen, Scoffs, what have you. And then we kind of started connecting through Underflow and whatnot. But it's amazing to me like how you can be in the same circles and like doing the same shit but not, you know. And a great example of that is Big Mess playing with hand grenades like years and years ago, because I think every single band I've been in, the Kodaks, Ohala, Moon Lake, Shady Groves, all of us have played with hand grenades. I think hand grenades and high strung, and I think you guys have played with both of them. So I was wondering if you guys could like walk me through like the formation of Big Mess, because like Thunderbirds Are Now was already done for a while. Like you guys were on Thunderbirds Are Now was on French Kiss, you were touring, you did the thing, then you came back, and then like obviously you guys, you know, were kind of starting to settle down and get married and have kids, but you were what is the is it Thin Lizzy, like too old to rock, too young to die, or whatever. Like that's like
something
what
like that.
started Big Mess.
I mean, we had a little stretch there before, like married and stuff like that, and had kids, but I don't know. I mean, it started in like 2008, I think. So
Okay. Okay.
realistically, look at the release of those records. They don't necessarily date the band all that well because
Mm-hmm.
those and that first record was done like 2 years before it even came out, right?
Okay.
So started in 2008. I think we all just obviously knew each other from high school. Scott and my oldest brother graduated together. My brother here and I obviously graduated together. We
Okay.
all went to school, said, hey, let's do this band thing. So we started playing. And then that's really the formation. That was about it, right? Put out that album, played a couple shows, took 5 years to put out another album, played a couple more shows, did a EP or a split, that's right. And here we are.
I mean, I would say that, you know, like the thing is that when we were actively playing, I mean, we would play the Blowout. We were playing basically every
Mm,
kind of big little thing that was
right.
happening.
Wow.
And I remember those hand grenade dudes, and I actually am shocked that they're still a band,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is cool. Like it's great. But
Yeah.
I just remember, you know, they like played with us a couple
Mm-hmm.
times, and it was sort of like there was something happening where like, okay, like garage rock happened with like the
Mm-hmm.
White Stripes and the Bombondies and all those bands, Gories before all that. And then there was like this like Thunderbirds did this sort of thing that was like a different thing, and like a dance punk, very New York sort of thing. And we signed to
Mm-hmm.
a New York label and did like, you know, we toured all around the world, which was great. And then once that was done, you know, coming back and like, you know, we're in my parents' basement right now. This is my mom and my dad's house.
Love that.
And like we've been practicing here for how long?
Since 2008. Yeah.
And like right down the street was a
Beautiful.
bar, and we all hung out at this bar and we had some drinks and whatever, and then we came down here and we started playing music, and it was awesome and it was refreshing. And we all listened to, I think, what we finally sort of like embrace in the new record, which is like Beach Boys, Beatles, Rolling Stones, like all
Yeah.
that stuff, Buffalo Springfield, you know, you
Love
know,
Buffalo Springfield.
that Nick Drake and blah 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 blah, and 100 other million things that we
Yeah.
listen to. But I think basically at the end of the day, like we all like bonded over like rock and roll. And you know, like yes, Detroit music, rock and roll is one thing, but like, you know, like we really wanted to talk about music in a different way, not just
Mm,
like in a way where it was like, yeah, I like this, but we were really talking about like what was happening inside the notes and inside, and that's why I think we all really connected in a lot of ways. Like
mm,
I'm sure you do in a lot of ways with people you play with. It's not about necessarily the song, it's about what happens in the song. And I feel like with this record, I feel like we sort of embraced that and almost like exaggerated that to be sort of like purposely like heard, where you can like hear those decisions that were made. Because I feel like that's, as like musicians, like we reach for that goal.
Yeah.
So like I think making that a little bit more obvious, I think plays up to like the humor and plays up to, all those exaggerated moments on the record, which I think it makes it a little bit more interesting for, I think, all of us being older now,
Yeah. I think we kind of almost, I would even hate to like venture to say, we like went out of our way to not like overplay. Like it could have been really easy for like to have guitar harmonies in every song, like Thin Lizzy. I would have loved it. It would have been sweet, but like it would have been a good song.
Gary Moore, man.
Yeah. Or like,
but you guys did it beautifully though, and I feel like it's really funny because like I was saying, through Underflow we've submitted like a couple songs to different outlets, and you guys are starting to get write-ups in random countries now, which is always cool to have to run write-ups through translators and stuff like that. But like on I Am Loved by the Losers, for example, there's like the double guitar solo, but like it's not crazy. Like it's not like, Thin Lizzy, AC/DC, like even Eagles. It's like it's very chill, but the interplay between everything is like really where Big Mess comes alive, I feel like. And that's, what Scott and I have been talking about is like there's such a like a really tight knit vibe to the band and a cohesiveness to the sound and like what you guys are going for, and like the amount of compliments that you've gotten on just like that like double like lead solo on I Am Loved by the Losers, or like the harmonica part, or like people pick up on these individual elements, but almost everybody compliments the production and how well it sits together. So that thoughtfulness really shines through, and that's really cool to have. I mean, it's hard to have like a diplomatic, democratic approach to songwriting when everybody has ideas, but I think obviously, again, you guys are adults, you're old friends. There's kind of like this, almost like
well, but
secondhand.
also like I think like for me again personally, like okay, so like these guys are brothers, right? Two twins and then an older brother that I went to school with. They don't need to know what part's coming. They feel that part. And
That's
like
magic.
well, I mean, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I feel like that's kind of like
I mean,
but it's always kind of been with this band. Like with Thunderbirds, it was very like, let's work it out. And like Ryan would have a song, and then we'd like try to like figure that out. With this, yeah, okay, I'd write a couple songs or whatever, and there would be stuff. But like there's songs on this record that like, I mean, we all like wrote, like Rob wrote songs,
yeah.
Mike wrote songs. Like the first song we wrote for the record was Better Now. And Mike wrote basic.
Love
I mean,
that.
well, I mean, I had like the chords on like a recording on my phone from like, I don't know, 2017. And like,
So beautiful.
it was like, we started to get together and talked about making a record. We started playing a little bit, and then it's like, hey, Scott got some of these chords, man. What do you think?
Check these chords out.
And
So dope.
that's the nice thing. Being able to like go through chord progressions or pieces with someone else,
Right.
get their feedback. And again, like Scott said, like to kick off, or like there's always like serve the song, the piece or part that serves the song best wins.
Right.
Right.
that.
Like, and we didn't like sit down here and like get all huffy puffy because there wasn't enough, guitar solos or drum solos. It's actually a fair amount of guitar solos on the album
Right.
as it happened. Maybe like only
Yeah.
one or two. Kind of like,
Yeah.
over
I
the
feel
top.
like that's something, again, listening through the whole discography, I feel like you guys are really good with that. You don't overdo any element. And so then like when a guitar solo like comes in, or like a harmonica part that's like really
well,
ripping,
I
you're like,
listened
sick.
to the record. I listened to the record the other day, and I was like, I don't think that there's one thing that repeats itself. The whole record has a different element. Every single song has a different part or a different layer.
Very
And I
wise.
don't think that was done purposely, but I think it was just done out of the sort of like excitement of like, let's try this or let's try that.
Yeah. That's so dope. I mean, it's like Scott was saying earlier too.
So
It's like,
another thing that we should really point out is like, I don't mean to cut you off, but like
no,
another thing I think that was fun was that like usually with the last two things that we've recorded, it's all been rehearsed. This stuff was like we'd send each other little things, kind of like a pandemic-y thing, which was like
oh, sure.
send each other like songs or whatever, or little parts here and there, and then we'd all kind of come here
Okay.
and then be like, okay, what do we do this? And it was more of a recording project than like a rehearsed like band thing, which I think also
Right.
gave it a different flavor from the other like
Right.
two records.
Yeah, it was definitely more aligned with like play the song as it should be, right? Because if you go into rehearsing it 6 months later, you're doing something different than you initially
Right.
thought. And hey, I think that got us out. I think that's what got it done faster, right?
Right.
A whole lot of thinking about it. It was like, all right, well, this is the part for now, and also serving the song. I think that's the main point.
So smart.
Drive home is like it's really
Right.
just a matter of serving the song, right? I mean, play the song as it should be, right?
That's so cool. You're able to tie all these elements together, like coming from different people and coming from like the past few years. I mean, that's kind of like what my collaborative group, Shady Groves, was trying to do too. But like one again, getting married,
We've
like
never heard of
you know,
that.
haven't. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Shady Groves is a band that I kind of started that
Shameless plug, shameless
that
plug.
started Underflow in a way because it's like multiple songwriters coming together, and that kind of helped us realize maybe we should start the label because there's so many people with so many different projects, and I feel like you guys are able to really tie all these different ideas together cohesively, which some people said Shady Groves could do, and then some people were like, this is a mess. Like you can tell who wrote which song, or like it's too many ideas going on. And I feel like I have no idea who wrote what with Big Mess. Like I think it's so intricately woven, and it's really cool to also hear how the sound has evolved. Like I feel like Scott's voice has evolved a lot, just like either the way it's been recorded or the sound of it, the timbre, what have you. So I feel like there's just an interesting
Secret
amount of
called
yeah
A.
age.
And COVID.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
COVID.
He had COVID one. Found out he had COVID one time after doing some vocals.
Yeah, I did sing better now during when I had COVID.
Well,
We were
you
safe
you
about it.
you weren't better, but you sang it
I was
better than
better now,
you've
but
ever
sick.
sang. So,
I think
well,
it's interesting you bring up like how things evolve, and I don't know. I think the more things change, the more they stay the same. To borrow that old pun, like that, it was a split, right?
Yeah.
That split was actually
Yeah.
done after Romantic Warrior softball team, but just released the year before because we're goofballs.
Oh.
But like, if I don't know, it feels like to me, and maybe you guys as well, but like we kind of, sort of, almost picked up. It felt like from a songwriting
Mm,
perspective of where we left off.
Yeah.
okay.
It was like
Yeah.
a lot of piano,
Hmm.
obviously two guitars, but
Hmm.
not trying to overplay too much.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm
There's
really
a
serving the song.
balance. Yeah, Serve
Yeah.
the Song is really cool because it's like it's the philosophy. And I feel like again going, between the stripped down approach to the kitchen sink approach, you guys really do that really well. And it just feels really fun, and it feels like again like there's something to be learned there. Like I feel like the best music has like re-listen and replay value because there's like layers to it, and you guys have so many layers going on, and again it kind of like matches that like Beach Boys trajectory from like the youth having like more urgency and more planned out and more rehearsed, and like early Beatles and Beach Boys records versus like okay, now you're getting to your like Pet Sounds, Sergeant Pepper era, and there's so many sounds going in, but there's still this like rock solid songwriting at the root of it, and like this like there's like a kinship in the music and how tight it is. And I guess like, the knowing there's brothers and twins and family
Yeah, but
and
the
parents, but
Beatles were best friends and
yeah,
the
yeah,
Boys were brothers,
yeah,
and like, I mean, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like like those guys from the Lemon Twigs,
Mm,
I've watched like interviews with them, and they get,
mhm.
pretty bashed on about like being like referenced to like and being very close
Uh,
to like
Todd
music that they
Rundgren
love,
or
like
whatever.
Todd Rundgren, the Monkees, the Beach Boys, the
I
Beatles, or whatever.
love that shit though, and like I don't think anything you guys are doing is too much like anything else. And I think I told Scott Shady Groves got to play with Lemon Twigs at the Crowfoot or the Pike Room or whatever. Super nice dudes. And we were talking about the Black Keys, White Stripes thing, which was really funny. I just remember that conversation in the green room. And
No,
then
but basically, what I was just wanting to say is like, yes, it is a very close thing, but like I think that's what happens with brothers. That's what I mean. Those guys
yeah,
are brothers. Ryan and I were brothers. These guys are brothers, twin brothers, and an older brother. I mean, and now with my dad, like there's like a distinct thing that just sort of happens in that sort of
yeah,
creation that I
yeah,
feel like it's almost unavoidable to
right.
happen. And and I prefer I would I mean I think that we prefer that,
Yeah.
more than anything else because there's a natural sort of like feed off of each other. Like
And
I
that goes to disagreements too, right? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to tell someone you've known for 38 years or whatever, like, hey man, why don't you try something else? You know what I mean? But like, I don't know.
yeah.
There hasn't been disagreements on this stuff.
No
Again,
fist fights. I mean, even though there's brothers, right?
uh,
Like Kings of Leon
this
are
was a
famous for fist
this
fights.
was really
huh,
easy. Like
yeah,
this was like I think that the toughest thing was just making sure that we got the tones right.
Yeah,
Like all were just like
beautiful tones.
best idea. That's the best idea.
Serve the song.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah, I love that. It's so good getting to talk to you guys. I don't know how much time we have left. Like probably like a couple more minutes before we
Million
can.
hours.
We're
yeah. No,
we're we're yeah, we're almost to an hour. So I
What do
just
you
wanted
want to
to.
what do you want to ask us?
There's so many things I still want to ask you guys.
Well, let's
But
go. Let it rip. The speed round. Let's do it.
speed round. Oh my gosh. Okay. How did the order of the songs come from the chronological order of which the songs were developed, or was it
it,
an intentional decision like through the Batman like trilogies, a trilogy
they
of trilogies?
they came in the order that they were written, with one exception. I think we
moved
switched
Weekend.
better now. We switched the first three around. No, we switched Better Now and Weekend.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
we had
good call.
written Losers first, and then I think Better Now is the first one we recorded. So, like, okay,
Okay.
call it a bargain. Like,
Yeah,
it's all
same thing.
same thing. But yeah, largely we're the
It's such a good flow, honestly. Like the whole record flows really, really well. Like and I know like it's so funny because like running an indie label collective, like it's like Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong and does go wrong. And it was so funny because Scott and I were like, yeah, like the one he's like, because like Scott was saying earlier, it's like, who cares? Like, we don't really care. We're doing this for ourselves and for our family and for fun and for expression and to escape the horrific, mundane realities that we have to be faced with sometimes. But sometimes we also want to express the joys and love and sadness and weird experiences that we have. And I think that's really encapsulated in this record, and we try not to take ourselves too seriously. But also sometimes it was like, Scott was like, yeah, like the one thing is like the song titles, and then like of course the song titles like just like the formatting like got fucked up, and it's just so like so funny because it's like, it's interesting how every band has their different focus, and I feel like you guys really get the whole picture, the big picture, in terms of like, the hilarity and the humility of all of it, but also like it's still your image, even if it's raccoons, like it's still you guys, like, and there's something really
Sure.
special about that. And I feel like the cinematic nature of the music and the record and all of it flows so beautifully, and that's all tied together with the songs. And you guys were talking about Westerns, and before we end, I was just curious, like we've talked about a lot of musical influences, but I was wondering if there were any other particular musicians or eras in history or movies or philosophical concepts or weird things in reality that influenced this record, or you guys as musicians that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, I don't know. In terms of music, I mean, I would say that we're all collectively all across the board, right? But I mean, I think that goes with that. Ask any
Mm-hmm.
ask
Mm-hmm.
any band, they're gonna tell you the same damn thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think we all really, really like music. Yeah. I think we wouldn't like be in the same room like every Thursday with loud amps and stuff like that if we didn't. But like I think we all really like music. A large part of it's the same. We all, I think, like the Beach Boys. I think we all like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, Stones to a degree.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
you know, uh, these guys love westerns. I could take them or leave them, I guess. But
That's
um,
great. I love it.
shit, we could sit and talk music and all sorts of good stuff for hours.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think we
absolutely.
run the
Yeah.
gamut on that.
Cool.
Yeah, other things that inspire us, the damn city Livonia.
True.
And
Man, I love
everything
it.
that happened in these 2 miles and millions of friends and all our buddies,
Right.
we'll see today. So
That's super cool. It's really awesome to pay homage to, kind of your roots and what made you who you are, where made you who you are, these things. And I feel like that's really tied in with this new record, From Sheldon Hall to Wonderland Mall by Big Mess, the third record. It's awesome. It's beautiful in every way. And I feel like there's a humility and a humor to it. And it's funny because I feel like all of us are always going to be like Detroit musicians, but I grew up in Lapeer, which is between Flint and Detroit. And you guys grew up in Livonia, which is just outside of Detroit. And I mean, that suburban sprawl between Flint and Detroit and even Saginaw and Pontiac and like all along 75. It's a totally different vibe than, say, growing up in the western side of the state or along the shores of the Great Lakes or in the Upper
Not
Peninsula.
ashamed to be like, I don't think we were. I think when we first started, we probably said that we were more of a Detroit band, or maybe I don't know. But
Well,
like,
right. That's where we all play. And
but
it's
like,
like,
but at the same time, it's like, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like,
mhm.
I mean,
we're we're Michigan boys, and I think
yeah,
it's really
yeah.
cool. You wear it on your
But it
sleeve.
was important to sort of like capitalize like how important. I think that's what it was, because really at the end of the day, when we wrote this record, it was really about remembering all like our childhood. I mean,
Hmm.
there's notes of, high school love.
Right.
There's notes of, just being friends and doing stupid shit. Um, and
Yeah.
then there's like, sort of like passing the sort of like peace torch of like our, deepest, darkest secrets of like whatever the hell we've been going through. So
Right.
like,
Yeah.
but then I think at the core, it's really just about like writing the music we love the way we hear it
Mhm.
afterwards. Like we're all influenced by things. And once we're done being influenced by those things, then we apply it to whatever it is. And, we're lucky enough
Right.
to have this little space that my dad has has put together for 20 something years at this point. I mean, a lot of music, a lot of bands have stayed down here. I mean, there's been so many, it doesn't even matter, but I'm just saying, like, there's
Yeah.
been people down in this basement that like are semi-famous now. Like
Yeah.
but it doesn't
That's
matter.
super dope.
Basically, the deal is that there's a space here that we've been able to like utilize for so long.
Right.
And what has happened in this space in the 2 mile radius with whatever is like it's always been like here. So like
Right.
we've recorded everything here basically,
except for the drums on the first
besides
record.
besides the drums on the first record, but like it's always been here, so it's like there's a comfort, there's like a
Yeah.
feeling of home, I think, that we
Yeah.
all have, where we
Yeah.
can kind of like feel comfortable. So brotherhood, family, all that stuff I think is important, but I think at the core is like a natural sort of like bouncing off of each other where we
Mm.
can, you know, I mean, really, in all honesty, like the three of us really got together and did a lot of this. Pat was very a part of the project as well, but he came in sort of like in little spots here and
Mm.
there. But like as we progress, which we plan on doing, like we're not stopping. Like this is not just like a thing where, we wrote a record and then we're like gonna
Hell
just
yeah.
another 10 years. We got another
We got another couple coming, baby.
Hell yeah. That's what's up. I'd love
we
to
got
hear
more
that.
songs that we're working on and we plan on doing something soon or again. And so, like our basically our plan is to like, you know, promote this record a little bit for whoever cares.
Mhm.
Maybe play a couple shows, but record again and like keep creating and like
Super cool.
it's I think for all of us, and I don't want to speak for you guys, but like for me, this has been like honestly my favorite recording and like musical experience that I've ever been a part of because I feel like for the first time we were all able to just there was not an argument. There was not a time where we really disagreed on anything. It was
Right.
very natural from the beginning to the end. And if we
Mm.
can recreate that every single time, like that is awesome. And I feel like we
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we just had fun. Really
That's
fun.
awesome. That's
You know.
super cool. There's like a camaraderie and a humility in Big Mess, and it comes through in the sound and the way you guys talk about the band and the project. It's really refreshing, honestly, because so much of music is like self-indulgence and selfishness and damn near like narcissistic, sociopathic, like psychomegalomania, and so it's really refreshing to just kind of like have an indie band that's an outlet for your friends and your family, and it's cathartic, and it's cathartic for me listening to your music and everything you guys are talking about, and you know, the whole like sonic tapestry of it all and the way it kind of reflects the weirdness of our world, but in a really fun way. It feels really full circle from, everything you guys are talking about of like meeting in high school and now being adults. And I was talking about this earlier in one of my classes. I had said to another musician who was like showing a song to my professor, like, the best songs and lyrics and melodies are the ones that are like Beach Boys or Beatles or Stones, where like little kids know them. Like it can be super hypnotic to a child, but also super profound to an adult. And I think that's like some full circle shit that you guys
Yeah, it's just like Star Wars. Star Wars was made for,
or
you know,
Batman.
no, but it's true though. Like
Yeah.
Star
No,
Wars
it really is true. I'm a huge
to
Star
like
Wars fan, even
sell
despite
toys.
the modern stuff.
It was to
Yeah,
sell toys.
yeah,
And I think George Lucas had like a bigger picture with that. So like
yeah.
I
The
think the same.
philosophy behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like, yeah, I mean, we're not gonna
Which
be
this is
selling
a
best actors,
perfect.
but
I mean, maybe I told Scott, I don't really know if I'm comfortable sharing this with the world, but I have ideas of like figures to go with Underflow Records because like I don't know how many labels have done
let's
that.
try to press
Um,
some vinyl first before we make plastic dolls.
No, I
But
think I want dice. If we could get like dice and then like
ooh.
decks of cards. Decks to play a lot of cards.
People have hats, people have like weed grinders, like you never know. But to just dovetail
Would
all this, yeah, that would be cool. To dovetail all of this, I love the like the Middle Earth like art of like the giant doobie and like the half the earth. It's so good.
a bunch of
Uh,
guys that smoke weed.
so good, so good.
Oh, yeah, those
But
were they were funny.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
love all the artwork too. It's really, really good and it ties in with everything. But just to wrap it all up and dovetail it with something that Scott had just mentioned with Star Wars, last question for you guys before we end. Aliens, do they exist or not? What's your guys' take?
That's a heavy question, man. Um,
Gonna talk for another hour now.
I would say you look at and think about the things that we as humans just can't comprehend. The concept of a light year or many light years, you know.
Mhm.
Dude, there's got to be something out there, right? Like we're
I
not the
mean,
only.
statistically, like it would
Got
be
to be something.
impossible, right?
That
Yeah.
said, like
Yeah.
you know, we've got a cousin. Yeah, shout out Mark. Shout out cousin Mark. Yeah, he can recount this story from when he was a child.
Yeah.
And he's been telling it since we've been 30 or for 30 years now, since I've been old enough to remember. They knocked on his window, the aliens, at night,
Amazing.
but the story has never changed, right? Always been the same alien coat, cloak, two of them, right? So just based on that,
Cloak.
I believe there are aliens out there.
The tall
Damn.
whites. Or the tall
Dude, that's crazy. I mean, I don't know if Scott told you, and I don't know how much I'm even really legally at liberty to say, but I worked for the company called Gaia, and it's, as much of great yoga and ancient civilizations and psychedelics content that is on there, there's also a lot of aliens stuff. And I mean, I've heard the gamut of alien stories, but the alignments, it's weird. Like little kids, adults, elders, stuff that's sometimes only brought forth through like hypnotherapy, and the big crossovers are the grays, the reptilians, and the tall whites. And,
I'm a
I
lizard.
just to lizards,
A
my
total lizard.
my buddy's bare hands from New York, like bare hands, they have a song called Reptilians, which is a good one, honestly. But there's actually a really good show. I highly recommend you guys check it out. It's called People of Earth. And it's a great premise because it's like a writer from like New York Times goes to like upstate New York to kind of investigate this like contactee group, and is essentially set up like it's like A&A, but like, that people who've had contact experiences. And
Yeah.
the reporter goes like thinking like, oh my gosh, like these people are fucking nuts, like this is a bullshit assignment, like fuck all this. And then he has like a contact experience, so he joins their like, A&A, and like they all have experiences with grays, reptilians, and tall whites. And it's hysterical because it also shows the like alien side of it, but it's like Office Space, like the aliens like hate their job, and like it's just like bullshit, and it's like super, like they're super petty, and
I
like
mean, I'll be honest with you. If aliens hate their fucking jobs, then we're fucked.
Yeah,
Because
like that's like if there are
yeah.
aliens, they probably like looking on us or hang out with us, you know what, or something. But they look at us, they're like, "Wow, these guys are fucked. I don't
Oh,
want anything
totally.
with these fucking bozos."
I
Yeah.
remember like a meme when the pandemic was going on. It was a meme was going around, and it was like aliens like on a sofa with a TV. They're like, "Holy shit! Like you gotta check out this new season of Planet Earth. Like 2020 is nuts."
I thought when
Like
you started talking about a TV show of a writer from upstate New York, you talk about Everybody Loves Raymond.
oh, that's really funny.
tell you
He was
what,
a sports writer. Oh, he was a sports writer. Yeah.
a planet of raccoons called Livonia is about
It
as
exists.
alien as I think they are.
Yeah, sweet.
And if
And
you
I
want to explore it, listen to the third Big Mess record from Sheldon Hall to Wonderland Mall. I think that's probably a good place for us to leave off. But damn, this was a great conversation. I think we could probably do this again in some form or another. But it sounds like you guys have lots of music coming down the pipeline, so I'm excited
yeah,
about that.
yeah, hopefully some shows.
Good.
Shout out to any local Detroit musician that wants to
Mm,
book us. We're
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
We're
I
ready.
do all that stuff.
We're
All
ready.
right.
All of
Big
you.
Mess is on the market, single and ready to mingle.
Yes, exactly. We're like on a dating site for bands.
Ooh, Big Mess has entered the chat. So
Yes.
sliding into the DMs. So
Yeah.
well, thank you guys so much for your time. The Cardens, the Allens, Big Mess. Again, not only the third record is out, but Big Mess self-titled, Excellent Dope, Middle Earth, Romantic Softball, Romantic
Romantic Warrior
Softball,
softball.
Romantic Warrior Softball Team. Okay, gotta get that word
We're
right.
into brevity.
Romantic,
Yeah.
brevity, and then now.
Not as confusing as Fiona Apple record. Okay.
No,
It's a
that's
little
true. Oh my gosh, this clip is going around online right now. I've never seen a Fiona Apple hanging out with Quentin Tarantino, and he's like clearly all coked out, and she's like stoned or high, and she's like nodding, but she like looks horrified, and like she said publicly, like there's this infamous night in my life where I never did cocaine again because I had a horrible night with her then boyfriend Paul Thomas Anderson. Had no idea Fiona Apple was with PTA. But there's like a clip of it of like Quentin Tarantino like going off to Fiona Apple, and it's just
She was
hysterical.
I'm in a
I can't
bad girl.
the
Well, the thing,
density of the production of your records is almost Fiona Apple-esque in a great way. I love those records. So
well, and I'll say this, you know, with like mainstream stuff like Beatles and Beach Boys, which we've mentioned, but there are other influences. Like Blake Mills definitely is somebody that we definitely
oh yeah,
really, really appreciate.
sure.
And he played on a lot of Fiona Apple stuff,
Mm,
play guitar on some of his stuff, and play
I did not know that.
like
That's news to me.
John Bryan
Yeah,
and
like
soundtracks. I think he might have played on stuff like that,
wasn't he
but
friends
he
with Elliott Smith, John Bryan? There's like clips of them playing together, right?
yeah, Elliott Smith. I think John Bryan produced the last Elliott Smith record, but Blake
Word.
Mills is like,
Okay.
um, for I think is another person that
Mm.
like people should really listen
Yeah,
to
yeah,
when it
yeah.
comes to
Incredible
an
musician.
approach of just like taking pop music and kind of like turning it outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Inverted
But
pop
anyways, back to
music.
our record. Buy it. It's free.
Off kilter, and we're free to do our thing, right?
Yes.
So we still have like First Amendment rights for the moment. So keep releasing music, keep doing your thing. Is there anything else you guys wanted to share with the world before we end this episode
Thank
of
you,
the
Adam, for
Underflow
everything.
podcast?
Our Underflow experience has been
Thank you
nothing but
guys. Oh,
Thank you. Yeah,
great.
thanks for everything and having an interest in our little podunk band here in the greatest little city in
Love
Metro
it.
Detroit.